In traditional Yoruba, he is the second in command within the Yoruba pantheon of gods, somehow known as the deputy of the supreme deity Olodumare. Often regarded as the founder of the first Yoruba city of Ife, Obatala is one of the oldest Orishas who was granted authority to create humanity. Though he was the supreme god who created the universe, he is the heavenly father of every living thing brought to life by the supreme god. Obatala is depicted as an old man with white robes that symbolizes peace, clarity of thought and wisdom, forgiveness and resurrection, which is why some accounts linked him with the Christ and the Egyptian Osiris. Obatala, also known as the Horn of All Heads, is among the most important Yoruba divinities. The Yoruba people often associate him with white substances such as white flowers, coconut, milk, and rice. He is honored with brilliant white clothes, white food, cowries, and silver jewelries. And just like the Orisha himself, the priesthood and worshippers of Obatala only wear white garments. He is also called Alamorere, the one who turns blood into children. And among other responsibilities, he makes women fertile and shapes the fetus in the womb. As the will of the setter of life, he is the father of laughter who sits in the sky like a swarm of bees. In Yoruba, Oba means king and Tala or Allah to be specific means undyed fabric. So he is the blank canvas, the king of the white cloth believed to be a peaceful judge. He is the source of all that is pure, wise, and compassionate. The color white being related to him is often accented with other colors to represent one's path in life. This color is the most appropriate for Obatala as it contains all colors of the rainbow and yet is above them all. He is the only Orisha who has an equal number of both male and female paths, probably because he is the father of creation and thus can't be thought of having a specific gender. This is the reason why, in terms of sacrifices, Obatala, who is usually conceived as a male figure, is the only male Orisha who eats in the female circle, thus accepting sacrifices of female animals in his honor. Traditionally speaking, though, for any sacrificial offerings to Obatala, the animals or their parts should be completely white. The Orisha Obatala is central to the creation myth of the Yoruba cultures of West Africa, where it's counted among a group of specific entities known as the white gods of creativity and justice, an epithet referring to purity both physically and symbolically as in the light of consciousness. The most famous myth of the Orisha is probably the one explaining how humanity came to be. And through other tales, he always provides a moral purpose, such as in the story of the historical King Shango, the Orisha of lightning and thunder. At the beginning of time, after the Orishas had emerged, there was no earth but only a vast reach of water and tame swamps. The Orishas lived in a place ruled by the supreme god, on whom many praise names are bestowed. Each Orisha had attributes, but unlike the others, Obatala was a symbol of the power to create life. Olorun was the only Orisha who lived apart from the others, ruling over the primal waters of the misty earth, a twilight domain with neither plant nor animal life. For many ages, these two kingdoms, Olorun's above and Olokun's below, coexisted without any conflict. For the other Orishas were fine to go about their days without paying much attention to the primitive realm below them. Obatala, however, was not satisfied with this state of affairs, believing that if land was raised from the watery domain of Olorun, the Orishas and other forms of life would inhabit the area. So he approached the supreme god with these concerns, suggesting that Earth would be improved if there was a solid land on which other forms of life could live. Olodumare agreed, and Obatala undertook this great campaign of refashioning the earth, with the unique purpose of introducing life into its unfertile surroundings. Therefore, with the universal stage set and the heavenly players ready for action, we are being introduced to principal Yoruba divinities through which the first stage in the creation saga will unfold. Besides, a mythological map is presented here with a male figure residing above, and a female figure as the earth below on the verge of giving birth to life. Obatala, being the leading force of this tale, is called King of the White Clothe, in part because white symbolizes the seminal fluid, the creative potency of the male which is about to introduce into the feminine realm of Olokun. But not certain how to go about it, he went to Orunmila, who could divine the best way to proceed with any undertaking. This Orisha has the ability to peer into the future, to divine fate, and to understand the deepest mysteries of a being. We should note here that Orunmila is also known as Ifa, the name of the Yoruba system of divination that uses 16 cowrie shells tossed on a sacred tray. And depending on how the shells fall, heads up or down, a variety of patterns are possible. And each one of them has 100,000s of verses, providing a unique interpretation. So, the same sacred forces that govern the mystery of creation of life as a whole also govern the mystery of each human life. Following Orunmila's instructions, Obatala descended from the sky using a golden chain and took with him a snail shell full of sand, a white rooster, a palm nut, and a black cat. Halfway down this very long chain, Obatala started to feel himself leaving the light world of the Orishas and slipping into the misty realm of Olokun. He continued until he could hear the splash of waves, but when he reached the bottom of the chain, he was still well above the waters. In limbo, he held onto the last link of the golden chain, wondering what to do next. Then he heard the word sand whispered by a voice from above. From a snail shell, Obatala poured sand on the waters, and wherever the sand fell, it immediately turned into dry land. He let go of the chain and came to rest on the ground, then called the place where he landed Ife. When the supreme god decided to see how he was doing in the world below, Olodumare found Obatala pleased, but was looking for some light to warm and brighten the twilight lane he now called home. Olodumare thus created the sun, which he set in motion across the sky. After a while, Obatala, tired of having just his black cat as a companion, was determined to create mankind to share the land with him. He made small figures out of clay, men and women shaped like himself, then called on the supreme god to breathe life into these beings. At some point, the Orisha paused from what he was doing to get some wine so that he can refresh himself, but his drunkenness made his word grew soft and slightly out of focus. His fingers became unsteady, and what he created after that reflected his impaired condition. In his drunken state, Obatala failed to notice these deformities. It was only when the haze of the palm wine has worn off that he realized what misery his drunkenness had brought. His heart was filled with compassion and remorse, so he made the promise to be the special protector of those born with deformities and disabilities. As the village continued to grow, Obatala became homesick and decided to return to his home beyond the clouds, where he awaited a celebration in his honor. When the other Orishas heard about what he had created in the world below, many decided to go and live among humanity. They prepared for their departure with a special code of conduct given by the supreme god. As the Orishas, they were to never forget that they are bound to the protection of even the lowliest of human beings, to be always open to their prayers, and offer assistance to humanity whenever they will need it. Obatala will keep having dominion over the heavenly affairs, but each Orisha would have a unique role to fulfill among humanity. According to the tradition of Ife, while Obatala was resting in heaven, Olodumare saw that he had left his work undone, so he sent Oduduwa, who would later be known as the first king of Ife, to complete the task of creation. If we thoroughly think about it, we are treated to some classic symbols of mythology expressed in the local variation of the Yoruba culture. The golden chain in this story is portrayed as a word axis communicating between heaven and earth. The palm tree as the world tree, the nourishing and sheltering first symbol of life among men. And finally, the sand brought down by Obatala as a consecrated holy land. Ife, the original holy city founded by Obatala in this myth, became an important center of sacred wisdom for the Yoruba people and remains a city in Nigeria up to this day. As we have suggested, the Yoruba pantheon symbolizes the vicissitudes of the human psyche, so this tale also presents Obatala's human side, for he is drunk at the crowning moment of his glory, firmly bringing the Orisha within the human attribute of fallibility. And since the human fallibility is known to encompass certain disharmonious consequences of society, it requires the search for corrective solution as well. So this cycle ensures the constant regenerative process of the universe. And by bringing the gods within this cycle, a continuity of cosmic regulation involving the words of the ancestor and the unborn is also guaranteed. This cycle of fallibility and remediation is a variant of the cycle of death and resurrection, concerning not only the society and the universe but any individual as well. Even more of Obatala's character is revealed throughout the stories. Before heading off to visit his friend Shango, Obatala was advised not to go on this journey, otherwise he might greatly suffer, but should never retaliate no matter what was done to him. With that in mind, Obatala departed for Shango's kingdom, but unfortunately his robe got dirty and he was locked up in a cell after being mistaken for a horse thief. Obatala was not against it. He just sat in prison thinking that surely someone will realize this grievous mistake and will get back to his freedom. But he waited and no one came to his help. Meanwhile, a terrible plague was spreading throughout the domain of King Shango, and for years the rain ceased, crops failed, and women aborted. Out of great concern for his empire, Shango consulted an oracle and was told that a holy person was languishing innocently in one of his prisons. He immediately searched in his prison compounds and discovered Obatala in one of them. His white cloth was dirty, his beard was disheveled, and his skin was covered with dust, but still Shango recognized the king of the white cloth. Although he was a ruler full of pride, Shango prostrated himself like a common person begging for his forgiveness. After he was released, the Orisha lifted the plague as he was in pain to see those he had created suffer, even though he wasn't responsible for this. And once again crops flourished and women gave birth. We thus peer into the character of Obatala, seeing through these tales as a creative, compassionate and a protective great father. He is not a god of war but of peace. He does not sow the seeds of chaos and disorder but creates harmony and order. Little wonder when Obatala resurfaced on the other side of the Atlantic as a result of the slave trade. He was combined with Our Lady of Mercy in Santeria, where he is known as Ochala. The extensive use of the white clothing, which is related to his worship, has eventually become a symbol of the Candomblé pantheon in general. In this Christianized form, he was surreptitiously worshipped by African slaves throughout South America and the Caribbean. In Yoruba land, the praise name of the Orishas king of the white cloth indicates that it is a symbol of ritual, ethical and spiritual purity. It was common practice that a priestess would carry a jar of clean water to his sanctuary to be drunk by women to make them fertile. For many across the globe, the spirit of the Orisha lives on into the present age as a saint among saints and the archetypal spirit of creativity. Obatala has been carried to many cultures of the New World, where for centuries he has been honored as a patron of childbirth and anyone with a birthmark. Obatala represents a good king who fully embodies his anima, which is the feminine side of the masculine persona. And as such, he would thus be connected with those aspects of the masculine psyche undervalued by the modern society, like sensitivity, caring, nurturing, and self-sacrificing. I hope you've enjoyed this video on the Orisha Obatala. If so, then consider leaving me a like, comment, and share, and don't forget to subscribe as well. And as always, stay curious.